Hi folks, this is all the fruit, and today I want to forage around the Philosophers path in Heidelberg. One of the most beautiful places in the region if you listen to the tourist agencies. So the Philosophers path is right opposite of the old town and the famous Heidelberg castle, and both are connected with the famous old bridge. When you look around here, you might grasp why Heidelberg is sometimes being called the Prague of southwestern Germany or the Vienna on the Rhine. Very beautiful place. Right now, early October. Don't jump, dude. Don't jump, little dude. I don't wanna have to get you out. Good. Everything's fine. He's not jumping. So it's early October. Very nice weather. Indian summer. Still the leaves are more or less green. That's normal for here for the year. Actually a little bit more on the yellowish side than they are supposed to be due to drought stress. Also, October is smack in the middle of the fruit season, but this year the fruit season has been quite upset and quite weak for some fruits, but basically at strange times for other fruits. So let's see what we can find. The Philosopher's Path, well, the whole slope of the Philosopher's Path has a very crazy microclimate because, well, first it's in quite a mild part of Germany. It's at the edge of the Rhine Valley. Second, there is the Neckar River, which acts as an air conditioner, and there is this quite high slope which acts as a protection from northerly winds. Whenever you find such constellations, a mountain in the north, water in the south, and the narrow, that's important, narrow strip of land in between, you're gonna have some crazy super mild microclimate. Here, this climate is enforced by this sandstone wall behind the plants, and so the city has created kind of a Mediterranean garden here. Of course, the bitter orange, the only orange that can traditionally grow around here without protection. Now they experiments with other ones, but the bitter orange is the safest, up to minus 25 degrees. Fruiting profusely every year. This year this tree got a little bit confused. There are very few fruits which are in the proper development state. Most of them are still very small, so they will probably not develop before the first frosts. Pittosporum, plant traditionally not grown in Germany because the climate is not so mild here, but now it grows very well, 2.5 meters tall. Also ornamental cherries, hollies, ivy growing very well here, Syrian hibiscus. All those plants are quite used to the harsh German climate. Here we get to something fancier, a pomegranate. This one even manages to kind of ripe here in Heidelberg, but as you can see, everything up to 2.5 meters has been harvested long before they are ripe. You should wait till about November and also hope that it's not too rainy, otherwise they will explode like the granite that gets its name from the pomegranate. Well, let's see if they are high-hanging fruits after a month. I might get some monk's pepper, nowadays used for female hormone problems. In older times it was used to make men into women. It's also called chemical castration. You use the monk's pepper to spice up your food, and the opposite of spicing up your intimate life happens. It basically causes everything to drop instead of stand. Another even lusher pomegranate. I used to be a big pomegranate fan as a teenager. Back then I would have killed for something like that. But nowadays I'm not such a big fan, so I'll leave them for somebody who might like them more. Loquats are becoming increasingly popular in mild parts of Germany as an ornamental, but only in very few locations like this one here do they fruit. Well, not in very few locations, but still in a limited number of locations like this one here do they fruit reliably. The problem with fruiting is that most of them flower in late autumn when the flowers freeze and no insects can pollinate them, but this one has started early. This one has started in September. I think pollination will work very well. The flowers have a very strong smell of bitter almonds. That's cyanide, folks. That's cyanide so concentrated in the nectar, in the flowers, that you can smell it. Yeah, you can still smell it from a couple meters away. Mahonia, probably japonica, edible after processing. And here rosemary, edible as a spice. And you can see that we had quite a rainy period before this Indian summer because everything is lush and green. Here another loquat, another area of strong smell of cyanide. You can see, like many other not frost hardy plants, they froze back 12 years ago, around 2013, when we had the last harsh winters. That's why the pomegranates and also the loquats and other plants like this, they're usually bushes with the oldest stems being around 12 years old. Yeah, I like to show this place because of the very almost subtropical looking stuff that grows here. Remember, here we have the river very close up, but also we have cold air flowing down through the valleys and collecting here in the bigger valleys. So this place is usually the water river will keep you warm in winter, but the river of cold air that flows above the water river might still reach this location here. A yucca and the peach almond. The almonds, some say they are edible, some say they are toxic. My rule of thumb for rosaceae, if they are bitter, they have too much cyanide, but some people say even the non-bitter ones can be dangerous. I don't know if this is true or they are just being overcautious. But yeah, very common almond or almond hybrid around here for ornamental purposes. Flowering quince. Around here it's an ornamental. In cold areas it's a fruit shrub replacing the quince. And here we have a Mediterranean Viburnum tinus. So this bitter orange has more or less ripe fruits, like it's normal around this time of the year. And the leaves have a strange reddish color, which is quite unusual. But yeah, that's more or less the usual state of the fruits here. And here we have a strawberry tree. Not closely related to the strawberries, but to the heather. However, the fruits are kind of strawberry-like. Oops. Here they are. Tasty. A lot of people say they are too bland, but I like them. And, well, most of the fruits are not ripe yet. You get already the flowers for last year. Very few ripe fruits, or very few fruits at all this year. But they're already flowering now, so I hope they will have a lot more next year. German rivers have become a lot cleaner in the last decades, but right now it's still a little bit brown from the rains, which just stopped less than a week ago. Down here nowadays we even have beavers. You wouldn't have dreamt of this when I was a kid. Also a lot of interesting stuff to forage down there, but I don't want to go down. I'm going up. Banks of rivers and other wetlands, of course, have a lot of specific resources, and even normal resources like green leaves and stems stay fresh and juicy there much longer than on drier land, but no, I'm not after that right now. Because of the beauty and the mild climates, there are a lot of fancy mansions around here, which is good if you are looking for rare stuff to forage, because often they will grow it very often even without knowing that it's edible. Elderberry season is over. Chestnut season is right now, but we'll talk about them further up. Couple of edible greens here. Stinging nettle and the closely related glasswort, which is not stinging. But don't eat chelidonium in between, the stuff with the yellow flowers. It has yellow sap, which is so corrosive, it even kills warts. It's being used for that. Okay, walnut season is also here, but nowadays most of the fruits are infected by this stupid insect that turns them black, and so most of them, like 90% or more, 95 in this tree, are not worth collecting. Also down here, the horse chestnut or conkers, not edible due to high saponin content, but you can use them to make soap or explosives or stuff. Somebody coming around the corner. Bunch of girls. Funny. The area down here is known as the ice cellar. I still don't know if there was a real ice cellar here, or if it's called that because it's so cold down here between those walls. Maybe both things. It was pretty cold it was pretty cold here in that area, so they made the cellar for storing ice, being able to provide not just ice cream and cold drinks. In summer, this ice was used for much more important things like keeping meat fresh. And back then, if meat turned bad, usually you would still eat it, but it was a big health risk. So finding places like this where you could keep ice for months was a very valuable resource. This path is called the snake path. Still not sure if it's because it wiggles around like a snake, or rather because of the big number of snakes you can find around here. There are several species here, plus the legless lizard. What was its name in English? Latin name is Anguis fragilis. Forgot the English name. Look at that. Tomatoes growing over the wall. It's something. It's already eaten most of this berry. This here is the only location in the area with the rare non-native plant Nonea lutea. I think it could be this one here. A couple non-flowering plants. Yeah. You always don't know exactly how to handle. Those could be rosettes. Rare non-native plants. Are they worth protecting? Should they be destroyed, or should they just be admired like some curiosity? Oh, an ornamental apple with yellow fruits seems to be in season. It's really a bit strange, this path dug in so deep between high walls. The garden's usually not so deep, I guess. It's maybe for privacy. You have to walk up quite a big part of this public path without seeing much. Linden. I wanted to make linden chocolate from the fruits, but I forgot. Maybe if I'm lucky, I'd stink laurel fruits. Well, here is a bit of hawthorn. Fruits look much more ripe than they are supposed to look that early in the year, but still edible. Also the rose hips are edible. This part here, you also couldn't see anything due to a, oh look, a crow. Not a raven. They are not too common here. This is a crow. Well, there was such a dense hedge here that you couldn't look into this garden, which belongs to a seminary. Oh, now that it has been removed, you can look, but I guess they don't like it so much because they've planted Virginia creeper here. Beautiful traditional orchard belonging, I think, to the Protestant church. Prunus mahaleb, also known as black cherry or mahaleb cherry, likes to grow in dry locations in Germany, in places like Turkey or Iran. I guess it grows in more moist locations, but in general it's a more drought tolerant cherry. Very bitter, used like bitter almonds. The season is over already. Couple plants tends to flower so late in the year, like we saw the loquat strawberry tree. Here we have some what is this, Plantago convolvulus, something like that. Nope. No. Well, it's a Plantago relative, and it grows like a big vine, and it flowers that late. And here quinces and hawthorn in the background. What was the name of this thing? It was not Plantago no, not Plantago. It was, oh my god, I haven't slept well this night. It's a relative of buckwheat, of Fagopyrum. Forget what I said. The German name is Windenknöterich. No idea about the Latin or English name. A lot of invasive Virginia creeper. The Knöterich is also invasive, and this bramble with nice big fruits, the Armenian bramble, is also invasive. Hops, which you need to make beer. Hops is the difference between beer and ale. Hops is native, but sometimes it likes to spread if it gets enough nutrients. Since it's almost autumn here, moist. We'll do a couple more edibles. Dandelion. Here is Plantago major. The clovers are also edible. Here's some real sorrel. Rumex acetosa. Don't eat the old man's beard, it's toxic. Ivy is also toxic, but it provides a lot of ecological services like flowering in autumn. However, this one is finished, full of young fruits. Also, you can use it as soap or fish poison due to the saponins. Lots of walnuts and plum seeds. Plum season is over, but there should be good walnuts further up. The church's orchard is huge. Fortunately, it's very hard to convert those areas into houses, or they would have chopped it up for housing plots, each one worth millions. However, the church did this in Heidelberg with another giant orchard, just as beautiful as this one and even bigger. They just paid the right people. Very sad. Hope they don't do it with this one. I mean, this one is a much more public and visible place. By the way, down here, the pink stuff is oregano. Very nice herb. Fire thorn. I knew it was native to the Mediterranean, then I thought it was native to America, and said this quite a lot. Now I know again that this species, Pyracantha coccinea, is native to the Mediterranean, since I saw it everywhere in Albania and at first thought it had invaded the whole country. Rigaron anus, super invasive, as you can see here. It has taken over the meadow. But the gardener has left most of it while cutting the grass this week, because it's nice for the bees. Yeah, that's one problem about nature conservation. As botanists, we hate this plant. The entomologists, the insect lovers, love it. Tell me what's the right thing. leaving such invasive stuff because they provide valuable resources to some animal groups, or destroying it and hoping that the native plants will provide enough of those resources. This whole area, you couldn't see anything. You were walking through a tunnel. Basically everything looked like this side. You were walking in a tunnel like this. You couldn't see up. You couldn't enjoy this beautiful view. A couple decades ago, Castle Old Bridge and Old Town. However, then I think it was even around 2013, the harsh winters, or maybe before that. In some harsh winters, a lot of those rubble walls crumbled. Maybe it was earlier. It was a harsh winter and the frost broke a couple of those walls. And usually here in Germany, if you have old rubble walls, so in this case even old walls with mortar in such interesting places, the environmental authorities will give you huge subsidies when you need to repair them. Sometimes they pay like most of it, 70-80%, because repairing those walls in Germany is super expensive. You still have to pay a lot. But I guess the authorities said if we have to pay the biggest part of this, at least we want some nice view for the tourists. And yeah, since the landowners here didn't want to pay everything, now we can look down on the city while we rest from going up here. All those girls and more mature girls looking at me in disgust. Yeah, sorry, I'm a wild man. Somebody told me to to change my attire and my garderobe in order to get more views. I don't care, man. I'm not gonna dress nicely just for you. This old bunker, protected by an old German medlar. This German medlar is very enigmatic because most German medlars are being grafted and are being grown like a tree with one stem, like this one here. There are feral medlars in the forest and hedges around here. This one is definitely not a feral medlar. Big fruits, not lobed leaves, no thorns, but I don't see where it's grafted. I've been studying this thing for decades, since the early 90s, and it's the most enigmatic medlar tree I've ever seen. Like, yeah, big, old, grown in a garden. We are still at the garden of this Protestant cemetery. I hope it's Protestant, or maybe it's Catholic. Is a seminary Catholic or Protestant or both? Well, it should definitely look like this, but it's the only one that looks like that. At the bunker underneath, very important, because in World War II the Allies would fly around and anything was fair game for them. School children returning from school, goats, cows, even some nice orchard could have been enough reason to bomb it. So yeah, I guess this thing was built above the bunker, maybe to shelter it or something like that. That's why it was grown like a bush, but still very enigmatic. Because so many people asking about the medlars, I wrote this thing 15 or more years ago, together with a then acquaintance. I hope people are still reading it. Let's remove some of the invasive creeper and old man's beard so that people can admire my creation. Finally, we've reached the Philosopher's Path. It's very interesting that we have two gardens here, two public parks, two little public parks with very similar names and very different vegetation. Over there, if you walk a little bit and get into the little side valleys and the forest, even in the hottest summer day with over 35 degrees, you will go into a cool and moist forest. But before you enter the forest, there is the Hölderlin-Anlage, a little park with conifers and ericaceae, with a lot of Nordic flora, Nordic feeling on the way to the Nordic microclimate in the forest. On this side, we are at some of the most climatically favored parts of Heidelberg. And here we will reach the Eichendorf Anlage, which is a park with Mediterranean and not really subtropical, but not frost-hardy vegetation, which was founded in the 80s and 90s in a time where nobody even believed such stuff could grow here, but I'll tell you about that later. Finally, we are leaving behind the garden of the seminary. We have been along it for a very long time, even before I started filming it, because we had to walk up there for a very long time along the wall of the seminary. There used to be 6 old medlar trees here when I was young. Now there is just this one enigmatic one on top of the bunker left. They've planted only one. Well, here are the traditional rubble walls of the local pig sandstone. Oh yeah, I forgot there is actually a second medlar that has survived here right next to this chestnut. Those must be pretty old, planted somewhere around the time of World War II. Also, chestnuts incredibly important here. On acid rocks, and sandstone is acidic enough usually, especially this red sandstone. Can be different with yellow or gray sandstone, but red sandstone is usually quite acidic. Chestnuts like acidity. So on acidic rock, usually in sub-Mediterranean conditions, but also up to the Canary Islands, mountains of the Canary Islands, or the mildest climates of Germany along the Rhine, those chestnuts were super important, usually even more important than all grains combined. In the Mediterranean, millions of people relied on those until the 1950s for their main sustenance. And that's also the reason they are grown around here, although I cannot swear that this was planted for that. It's also possible that it was just a feral seedling. It used to be very important for the sustenance also of people here in Heidelberg. I mean, they had fields in the Rhine flat nearby, but still those chestnuts were closer and much easier to get. Here you can see how Heidelberg was over 400 years ago. The mountains quite barren, and those forests of big trees above the city used to be chestnut forests. A lot of them still are, and because those are public forests, for centuries Heidelberg people would go up there and collect the chestnuts. And even nowadays in the 21st century, this is basically the initiation ritual for all people who come new to Heidelberg. Of course, we have a lot of expats from other continents, but also in most parts of Germany they don't have chestnuts. So whoever comes to Heidelberg around this time of the year is being taken to the forest to collect and roast and eat chestnuts. This is like the most typical thing you can do in Heidelberg. Also, if you look at this stuff again, even during the Middle Ages, people were aware that this compromises the defense of the city a lot, because all enemies can sneak up on the city from above, where the walls were kind of weak and low, as you can see here, and attack the city. And finally, that's what happened. The city was attacked from above. The enemy snuck through the chestnut forest, which was not being cut down because they were so important for feeding the population, entered the city and burned it down. That's why Heidelberg is actually one of the youngest. That's one of the reasons Heidelberg is one of the youngest and newest cities around here. Almost no medieval stuff except for churches and castles and important parts. Almost all the buildings are Baroque, just 400 something years old. Yeah, so the chestnuts fed the city of Heidelberg for 1,000 years, and then they destroyed it. People have foraged quite a lot of those figs here. But there is still more to go around. Maybe not on video and in my own town. You cannot prove where this is from. Maybe I bought it in a supermarket. The giant reed, the bamboo of the Mediterranean. In older times, most of Germany was too cold for this. Now it grows quite well here. Grapevines. For thousands of years, those south-facing slopes in the mildest part of Germany were wine-growing areas. That's what all those terraces were from until in the 19th century. Diseases from America eradicated most of this wine and replaced it with fruit trees. But even before, there was a lot of fighting. Like in the late Middle Ages, the vineyards and orchards reached all the way to the tops of the mountains, and the winemaking guild was the biggest but also the poorest guild of Heidelberg, probably because they drank all the wine themselves. And also the owners usually used to kind of rent those those vineyards. And how was it? Sometimes the tenants had to deliver the wine to the owners, but there was some loophole that they could grow fruit trees among the grapevines, and so they would usually grow so many fruit trees that not enough grapevines would grow well. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff with wine in Heidelberg. By the way, here in the Heidelberg castle, there is the biggest vat or the biggest wine barrel in the world, the biggest barrel in the world. It's the size of a battleship, and they had to build a whole new part of the castle to house it. You can still see it. It's a couple 100 years old, and you can even walk on top of it and stuff. It's one of the big attractions of our city, the biggest wine barrel in the world. Here a couple interesting ferns, especially this one, Cetera officinarum, very famous for anabiosis. When it gets dry and hot, basically the fern leaves will shrivel up a little bit like this, and they will look dead, but they will be still alive. Now you can see, because there was a lot of rain recently, they are not even looking dead. And also here Cantranthus ruber, a Mediterranean ornamental that has escaped from cultivation, showing how mild the climate is around here. European yew, most dangerous fruit of Europe. All the pink stuff is edible. Everything else on this tree is deadly, so stay away from it. Also, I used to take care of those ferns. Now nobody's taking care of them. They're being overgrown by ivy. What a pity. Yeah, I lost the contract because nobody in nature conservation cares about nature conservation. That's Germany for you. Chestnuts are also a very important nut to forage around here, much smaller than hazelnuts. This is a hazelnut bush, much smaller than chestnuts or walnuts, but ripening earlier, which in a way makes them more valuable, because if they ripened after the other ones, I guess not so many people would cherish them here in the mild climate where we have walnuts and especially chestnuts. I've seen that, for example, our wild boars around here, they don't really cherish the acorns, the bitter acorns from the oak trees, because they have so many chestnuts to eat all winter. They gorge themselves on chestnuts. And in summer, the wild boars have become so common around here. The populations have exploded for decades. In summer, a lot of them actually go and do quite unusual stuff. Some of them eat fruits like fallen cherries and plums for months, and some of them go around and they graze like goats or sheep. They eat brambles and stinging nettles and grass and stuff. Here quite an exotic garden, Himalaya palms, magnolias, figs, one of the most impressive bamboo bushes of Heidelberg in the background. The bamboos are sometimes thicker than my arm. Here we have again hops, more hops, more hops. I wonder if you can, oh, a very strong smell of sheep or goats. I wonder if you can make decent beer with wild hops. But I'm not a beer brewer. Where are those little beasties? Come on. Big animals are a very important resource. Where are you? Ah, yes. The Ailanthus population here is supposed to be kept under control. Yeah. Seems to have worked out fine. Down here another environmental scam of Heidelberg. Our solar ship was celebrated so much 20 years ago. Even then the people who did all the subsidies from the environmental agencies, I don't know, man, was it a couple 100,000 or over 1 million of subsidies? And they said there is maybe enough solar power for the light bulbs. Ship is still running around. It always ran on a diesel engine, which nobody ever said loud. And now there are the 20-year-old solar panels on top of it, just for ornaments and to keep receiving the subsidies. That's how it works around here. Playground made of black locust wood. Black locust is an invasive plant. Coincidentally, a couple young shoots are growing in the background. You're supposed to fight it, you're supposed to destroy it, but on the other hand, it's one of the most durable timbers that grows in Germany. That's why after Germany lost its colonies in World War I, they started growing it here for car axles and wheels and stuff like that. Mostly wheels. Back then cars had wooden wheels. And now they noticed that if you want locally sourced playground wood without chemical treatment, you need black locust. And so yeah, it's becoming quite popular, what was not the intended outcome. Here is one of those black locusts. Every part is toxic apart from the flowers. Although some say, oh, the flowers are also toxic and you need to make schnapps from them. But I'm eating them. Also here an elm tree. The fruits are surprisingly tender and tasty. And the cherry plum. Elm tree season is very early in spring, cherry plum in early summer, so both season is over. Despite being smack in the main fruit season, I don't find a lot of fruits. Very strange. This bearberries, what is it? Is it Juliane? Well, it's definitely one of the disgusting, non-tasty ones. Here we have the Eichendorff Anlage. In the 80s and 90s, a guy called Dr. Tischer, he managed to get to over 100 years, and almost until his last year he was growing garden with Mediterranean and other not so hardy plants here. And since he died the last 20-something year, it has been kinda maintained, but not really nicely. Here a strawberry tree he planted in the last century. It has been quite run down. Pity. I once could have gotten subsidies from the state to work on it, but the city didn't want to give it up. They say it's too important of a park to give it to me. I would have taken care for it and the state would have paid for it and not the city, but now it's being overgrown. Here a seedling of the holm oak. I've seen them spreading like crazy. Well, mostly it was like 10 years ago. Nowadays they are not spreading so much anymore. Holm oak might not look like an oak, but it produces acorns, and they are on the ediblish and palatablish side. Monkey puzzle tree, Araucaria araucana. The seeds are edible, but the seeds will only develop if there is a male nearby. This is a female tree. The cones are developing, but they are tiny, so I'm pretty sure they are unpollinated and not edible. Oh, look at that. Vineyard leek, Allium vineale. This is a type of onion which you can eat throughout the winter. Got quite a lot of moisture in the last week, so stuff is growing nicely. Here are in the amazing, you could almost say subtropical for German standards before the climate change collection. Nowadays there are lots such collections, but this is one of the oldest ones in all of Germany, but not very well visible anymore. So now we are looking for the dreaded stink laurel. Dreaded because the stink is so bad, you'll remember it for months and you will not be able to drink mullet wine on the Christmas market season without disgust. It's hiding among the different types of laurel cherries. I think it's this tree here. Yeah. Stink laurel. Wanted to harvest the fruits, but doesn't seem to be fruiting. What does it need? A pollination partner or what? In Frankfurt and in Freiburg, very similar climates, they are fruiting. Also no shed fruits on the ground. Okay. Here a couple more holm oaks. Wherever the holm oak dominates, it's a Mediterranean climate, and wherever you can at least grow it, you can call the climate sub-Mediterranean, so I guess we are sub-Mediterranean. This chestnut, we should put it in monumentaltrees.com. I guess it has a circumference of what, about 4 meters? There is a lot more of the Eichendorf-Anlage up there, including a Bismarck Tower and the bunker and so on. But let's go this way. Oh, this cotoneaster produces so many berries and they hang on the shrub all winter long. You can harvest them even in spring. Unfortunately, this species is super bitter. Oh, what's hiding next to this big yew? This is a plum yew. I mean, the fruits taste better than the normal European yew, and they are much bigger. But I don't see a single fruit on it. Pity. It's grown not too commonly around here. I don't know why. Oh, of course, I forgot to mention back then one of the biggest cork oaks in Germany. You produce wine corks from it. Everything is growing very slowly here. See this tiny cork oak here? It is already on a map of the area from the 90s. And it is what, 12 centimeters thick. Oh, 2 lotus plum trees. They produce something like tiny kaki plums, but those are too young, I guess. Here another big chestnut. Let's go into the Philosophengärtchen translation. Little Philosopher's Garden. Doesn't mean that it's the garden of the little philosophers. It means it's the little garden of the philosophers. Very good microclimate here with all those walls, and also pretty sunny. Look at the bitter oranges already ripening, and this year a bunch of them have those reddish leaves. Usually they are more yellowish. Maybe it says something about the climate this year. Yeah, very strong smell of basil, and yes, there is basil growing en masse around here. Maybe I should forage a couple leaves from this basil. Also, usually there is a huge population of lizards here, but right now not a single one is to be seen. Himalaya palms, they are very invasive in the southern Alps, or the climate is a bit milder than here. I guess they'll become invasive here too. But for now, we don't see a single seedling under the trees. However, what we see is a big exotic wood sorrel. You can eat all those parts, leaves and flowers. They are sour. However, you can also eat this tuber, which is not sour, but starchy, like a potato. If you want to avoid the oxalate, eat the tuber. It's not the needle-like oxalate, the crystallized oxalate, but the dissolved oxalate that will become crystallized in your kidneys. It's also called kidney stone. So if you eat too many of those flowers, here is another wood sorrel species. They are both not native. If you eat too many of those leaves and flowers, you get kidney stones. But if you want a more nutritious part, eat the tubers. This basil is really tempting. The Himalaya palm is called the hemp palm in Germany because you can use it like cannabis. No, you cannot smoke it. You can use the fibers like hemp or cannabis. Quite tough. They make raincoats from those leaf sheets in China, if I remember right. And here the hops is regrowing after being cut back. Apart from making beer, you can eat the very young bleached stems, the ones you find growing underground, like asparagus in spring. And no, that's not how you fix a wall. Yummy chickweed and sonchus. Sonchus a bit bitter. Should have stuck to the milkweed. Don't confuse the milkweed with the similar spurges over there. They are not only bitter, they are also toxic. Here is a true laurel. This is not a stink laurel from California. This is the true laurel from the Mediterranean. Very important spice. Here a young medlar tree, almost a shrub, covered with fruits. Let's see. Yeah, I guess they are ripe enough to be harvested, but are they ripe enough to be eaten? This looks bletted, but I think that it's rather rotten. So at this stage you can harvest them, you can store them somewhere cool and not too dry and let them bled. I'm too lazy to do this now. Maybe some have bletted on the tree, but I don't see any. The problem is that bletted ones look a lot like a rotten one, so they are very easy to confuse. By the way, there is a big feral population up here of German medlars. I used to take care of it, but no more contract. The stinging nettles look really yummy. I like them in burek, but my family, they like to make them into stuff I didn't like so much, like soups and salads. Also, this dog here is not edible. It's Rumex obtusifolius, a bitter and toxic dog species. But you can eat this plantain here, Plantago lanceolata. It's supposed to taste like mushrooms when you cook it. And here is Plantago major, also edible. Camellia, a relative of tea. This is Camellia japonica, while tea is Camellia sinensis. Since japonica grows here, I'm waiting for the first tea plantation in Heidelberg. Bonn, another city near the Rhine with wetter summers and milder winters. It's important because tea likes it mild and wet. Already has a plantation of Ukrainian tea. I wish Heidelberg would have one too. Not that I drink too much tea, but I still want one. Well, I also wanted to check on the feijoas. This one is behind, well, near the toilet now. This one looks small, not very well maintained. Not a single fruit on this one. Feijoas need a lot of water and nutrients, and I doubt they are getting them here. The very unfrost hardy for traditional German climate, Portuguese laurel cherry. This makes big trees in Portugal and in Macaronesia. The most bitter cherries I've ever eaten. The kernel is super bitter, but the flesh of the cherry is even more bitter. But nice plant. Also here a mulberry in the background. They were introduced here centuries ago, not as fruit trees, but to be for the leaves to be fed to silkworms to produce silk. And you find them here and there, and they also escape from cultivation. There's a lot more interesting stuff that way, but I will end up too far from my bike, so let's walk back the same way. Here one of the big peach almonds. Yeah, unfortunately they are planting mostly peach almonds around here and not the old almond varieties. This area has been an almond exporting area since the Middle Ages, but in the 20th century this culture of almonds almost disappeared here and got replaced by the prettier and more easy to cultivate, but not that fruity peach almonds. Well, they're a bit more fruity, but the seed is not that high of a quality. Alpizia, very pretty ornamental. Used to be not frost hardy enough for that area, but I guess not only did the climate change, they also bred more hardy varieties. I wonder, I mean, the fruits are most probably toxic, pretty much. Most Fabaceae fruits are toxic, including kidney beans. Raw kidney beans are incredibly toxic, but I wonder if the fruits are good to eat after processing. Yeah, nice and lush. So many edible things here. This is some Malvaceae. It should also be edible and tasty. Here a ginkgo tree, very medicinal. Also the fruits are edible, but smell and taste of puke. The seeds are a lot more interesting as food, but those people were clever. They planted a male tree, so no fruits. Here again the monkey puzzle tree. Most cones have fallen apart, except for one here, which is late in the season. But I guess all the seeds will be unpollinated, otherwise this would be a very lucrative food source. Oh, here is the linden tree hanging full of little linden fruits or nuts. And here is the firebuck. Its favorite fruit are supposed to be the linden nuts, however maybe it's too late or maybe they found something bigger. They're all sucking on a chestnut. That's crazy. Yeah, you usually find them under linden trees, and yes, they are here under this linden tree, but they are sucking on the chestnut instead of the much smaller linden fruits. Funny, I haven't seen a single lizard. We have black lizards here in Heidelberg, however they are more down on the neck, not up here at the Philosophers path. Oh, Saskatoon, very important foraging resource, but the season is in June, not now. Down there seem to be two really nice big specimen of a Mahaleb cherry, or maybe it's one big tree with two stems. Then it would be truly massive. In one of the many private gardens here. I think I've never seen this garden so tidy. Maybe that's the reason I see those trees for the first time. This is one of the very interesting areas here in Heidelberg. And down there a big feral holm oak. Very interesting area, but if you don't know the people, you can't get in. The kiri tree, the fastest growing tree in the world, and unfortunately invasive. I don't like it when people are growing things here which are proven invasive. That's like if you if you're having a repeat bank robber guarding your vault. You know how it's gonna end up. Oh, sumac tree. The Germans call it vinegar tree. The fruits produce an important spice, sumac, but I don't see fruits on this one. The sweet cherry next to it. Sweet cherries used to be maybe the most important cash crop around here, especially, oh, this is a nice big peach almond, especially since railroads were introduced to the area. This area was the first in Germany that got where the sweet cherries ripened, and so they would export them everywhere, to northern Germany, to London, to Moscow, to Scandinavia, even to northern Italy. Yeah, abandoned rubble walls in what it's now forest. You can find them pretty high into the forest here on those hills, and even higher on the other side, because above Heidelberg almost all of the old gardens are overgrown by forest, but they used to go up hundreds of meters on the slope. Maybe I should do a foraging video around there, see what you can find in those now forested gardens. Oh, rucola. I remember in the 90s when this became popular in Germany, people would pay crazy prices for it, and I would forage it in the gardens and roadsides. Not one of my favorite vegetables, but this one is not too bitter, but in this case it's incredibly spicy. I mean, rucola is a mustard, and this is extremely mustardy for a rucola, but yeah, totally edible. Amazing. Well, not amazing after all the rain. This one inflorescence of the brambles is flowering. You can see most of the inflorescences, the season is already over for them. Here is one out of season with green fruits. Here and there are a couple half-ripe red fruits. Guess the green ones have a good chance to ripen. Those here, they need a very mild winter to ripen, but yeah. This is the invasive Armenian bramble, and it does anything to get even more invasive. So this was the area with a strong sheep smell. Ah, here it is again. Oh, a mask. Yeah, those were the times. Well, I guess the sheep are down here among the ailanthus. Maybe even they have a small hut around here because it's very strong sheep smell. Here a rose flowering out of season. Actually around here often you have frosts in November, and then December gets quite mild, and then in December you have a lot of flowering roses. This one is flowering now in October, while the other one is producing a lot of edible rose hips. The flowers are also edible. Oh, evening primrose. Yeah, also every part is edible as long as it's mild enough. As long as it's fresh enough. The flowers, the fruits, the leaves, the stems. The roots are very nutritious. No, this was a but. The roots are very nutritious, so are the fruits. However, I don't, well, mostly the seeds. I don't like them too much. They taste like sodas to me. It was grown mostly for the roots in Germany before potatoes became popular. Couple amaranths. Nobody used to forage them here, but now that we have a lot more Asians, Africans and Latinos here, amaranth is actually being foraged quite a lot. What else do we have here? Edible potentilla, mullein, very important toilet paper, sloes or blackthorn. Can you eat ash fruits? It seems to be in season. Somebody here likes figs. Well, nothing against some good figs. Oh, here so many people stepped on this chestnut that it got processed, but I think I'll still pass. You don't want to know where those people have been. Clouds are coming up. Also, it's getting late. Well, it's October, so the warm part of the day doesn't last forever. Oh, here somebody really wants to protect their garden. Well, at least people are reading my sign. Let's see how long it will stand there. Private property. Can it be private property when it belongs to the church? Anything forageable here? Feral cherry plums, elderberries are out of season. Among the Virginia creeper there is Euonymus, but Euonymus is toxic. Cherry plum season must have been lit. Oh, wild carrot. I've never foraged those, and some people say they're quite edible. Some say hands off. They can be kind of toxic. Like they say the leaves are phototoxic. They say the small, well, the thin spindly root can be used basically to carrot flavor things, but it's not like those big garden carrots that are soft and crunchy, well, that are tender and crunchy and full of and orange, but it's a thin spindly root that basically just gives you carrot flavor. Here's some grapevines. Wherever there are grapevines, they should be grapes, but I don't see a single one. Strange. Even up there where the old vine is, okay, the birds and wasps have already eaten them off the vine. See, all the infrutescences, but not a single fruit remaining. Pretty meager foraging. If I went to my farm today, and I'll go to my farm one of the next days, I could actually forage a lot more, but that's probably because there I can walk freely in the orchards. Well, here I'm restricted to the mostly to the official paths, and there is also a lot of competition by very foraging adept tourists around here. A couple ornamental apples around this cemetery. Well, they might be ornamental, they are just as edible. Sometimes slightly less tasty than the big fruity varieties, but good enough. And I'm back down at the banks of the river. Well, I could check for passion fruits over there. They've pruned the vine. No blue passion fruits today. So folks, this was a foraging trip on the Philosophers path in Heidelberg. Tell me what you think about the various stuff I found. Apart from that, stay tuned for a lot more fruit videos from the beautiful and sometimes pretty fruit-rich city of Heidelberg. And of course, don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe.